Hi ladies and gentlemen, this is just a quick video to talk about one of the more important ideas associated with functions. As we've discussed already, functions exist all around us, not just in terms of mathematical representations. And today we're going to talk about composition of functions. So what I have is, I have the textbook opened up to page 241. As always, this is not meant to be large enough for you to read, but I just want to highlight a few of the examples that are in here and provide some commentary about composition of functions. Let's start with the whole idea of what composition of functions is. What we're going to do, and you remember, a function is something that takes an input and maps it over to some output. And the way we represent the input and the output is using the standard notation, where whatever is inside of the parentheses is the input, and then the entire expression itself is the output. The difference here is we are going to link functions together. We are going to take the output from a function and we're going to feed it in as the input to another function. That's what composition of functions is. So down here in this bottom graphic, we start with an X input. We feed that into our function machine. In this case, the function machine G. It's going to do something to the input X, and it's going to give us the associated output G of X. And we're going to grab that G of X and move it forward to the F function and provide it as an input. And the result then is a composed function, F composed with G, where we started with the input X and then we ran through the G function and took that output and fed it into the F function. So let's take a look at the notation here on page 241. We want to become comfortable with this. And I'm going to open up my magnifier to make it a little bit easier for you to see. This open circle notation does not mean multiplication. It is what we use for composition of function. So we use the notation F composed with G, and that is a function of X, where X is the first input. So this is actually equal to F of G of X, just like we have over here. And it's a little bit of a different notation. You just have to become comfortable with it. That open circle, similar to an equal sign or a plus sign or something like that, is just a piece of mathematical notation. All right, let's talk about the examples. So we have, starting here on page 241, an introduction to composition of functions. And then we have example number 2, which is just a typical example for this type of thing. Examples 3 and 4 are applications. So this will help you really get the understanding of what's going on with composition of functions. Then we're going to talk about example 5 and example 7. We're going to skip example 6. So examples 5 and 7 talk about evaluating and how we do evaluation with composition of functions. And then finally we'll move on. So we're going to skip the graphics there in example 6. We'll do 7, and we're going to move on to 8 and 9, which are both conversations about calculating domain and how we find the domain for our composed functions. And the last example in the section is decomposing. So if we have a composed function already, can we break it apart into the two functions that were used to create it in the first place? As always, as you're working through the examples, if you have any questions, please post them into the general discussion where we can have a conversation and everybody can be a part of that conversation. Here's a quick review. You can pause the video here if you want to make this note. This is the summary of what it is that we're looking at for the examples in section 3.4. One more thing I want you to realize is how ubiquitous composed functions are. Here's another example. This is example with texting. So let me give you a specific text example. So initially in this situation with our cell phone, we have an input of typing. We're actually putting in our text message. And then the phone operates as a function and it provides an output, which is a visible text message. And that message is sent to servers. And then what the servers are going to do is they're going to take that text message in, they're going to peel off the address of the person to whom we want to send it, and it's going to send that message forward. All right, so there's our output. That's our text, and it is going to be forwarded again through the cell network to the recipient's cell phone. At which point the cell phone for our friend is going to bring that message in as an input, and it's going to produce outputs. It's going to notify our friend that they have a new text message, whether that's a ring or a tone or vibration or whatever it might be. It's also going to display the message. Those are the outputs. So here's a really simple example to let you know that composition of functions is all around us. And what I'd like you to do this week is just think, open your mind, and see in the world that's around you, what are some of the functions and how perhaps are they composed together. If you come up with an interesting example, please post it on the general question area, the general discussion area, and we'll all have an opportunity to share with you. Thanks very much. I appreciate your time.